NBC is saying that the FBI believes that you tried to wipe the entire server. Did you try to wipe? No official wipe the whole thing.
Well, my personal emails are my personal business, right? So we went through a painstaking process and turned over 55,000 pages of anything we thought could be work-related. Under the law, that decision is made by the official. I was the official. I made those decisions. And as I just said, over 1,200 of the emails have already been deemed not work-related. Now, all I can tell you is, in retrospect, if I'd used a government account and I had said, you know, let's release everything, let's let everybody in America see what I did for 4 years, we would have the same arguments. So that's all I could say.
You tried to wipe the whole server. You didn't
I'm not, you know, I have no idea. That's why we turned it over.
You were in charge of it. You were the official in charge. Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something?
I don't know.
Well,
you
no.
know how it works digitally. Did you try to wipe the whole server?
I don't know how it works digitally at all. I do not have any.
You did not try.
Ed, I know you want to make a point, and I can just repeat what I have said.
It's a simple
in order to be as cooperative as possible, we have turned over the server. They can do whatever they want to with the server to figure out what's there or what's not there. That's for the people investigating it to try to figure out. But we turned over everything that was work-related, every single thing. Personal stuff, we did not. I had no obligation to do so and did not.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you. What, like with a cloth or something?
I don't know.
Well,
you know how it works.
One of the things I do want to highlight here, and we had this announcement yesterday of these 88 generals and admirals that came out. We have a few in the audience today. I will tell you, when that thing hit the street, we have had hundreds of others come forward. We wanted to time that thing just like we did, and I'd ask a couple that are here today. I know I see Gary through the lights here. I know that there's a couple of others. If you guys could just stand up for taking a stand. So stand up for America. Yeah, and I think, people know this. I mean, what we are facing right now around the world, and this big speech today that Donald's going to give is going to talk about our military, but we are facing one of the most, as it's been described by many others, many in our government, that this is one of the most complex, most dangerous times we've faced in over 50 years, and yet we are trying to cut and downsize and just gouge our military. So you're going to hear more about that today. The one thing that I always say when I do introduce Donald Trump is the biggest problem that he has is he tells the truth. I mean, think about that. There's so many things, so many issues that he has raised that he's been so spot on about. And sometimes it's the harder truth that really gets us to wake up. And I think we need to wake up in this country. This is a critical time for our country. I mean, there's so many things at risk as we go forward into the first half of this century, never mind trying to figure out where do we want to be as a nation by the end of this century. And this is really what we're talking about. It's not so much for the people that are sitting in this room or for me, it's about our children and our grandchildren, especially our grandchildren. So today you're going to hear about military readiness. You're going to hear about veterans. I always like to throw in our law enforcement professionals as well, although I know Donald Trump talked a little bit about our law enforcement professionals yesterday. We won't talk too much about that today, but our law enforcement professionals from the federal, state, local, tribal levels around this country are part of our nation's security. This whole issue with... Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. And again, when we talk about military and our military readiness and how we're modernizing, how we're spending our money, the size, the scale, the scope, everything that we are involved in these days in this just 15 years of perpetual conflict that just seems like it is never going to end. And I think you're going to hear some very different things today in how Donald Trump will approach not only our military readiness, but how he will approach the world stage. Again, the most complex and the most dangerous we have faced in at least half a century, if not longer. In warfare, when you have an uncertain situation to your front, one of the things you have to do is you build up a reserve to be able to deal with any surprises that come your way. And yet, we have this uncertain situation globally, and we're cutting our reserve. We're cutting the forces that actually, are there to protect us, and we cannot have that any longer. Again, there's so many other things at stake. One of the other points that I want to bring out about Donald Trump today, and it's a word that that he has been tagged with, I think, by Hillary Clinton. And that's this issue of temperament. And I will tell you, we actually addressed it in the letter that came out yesterday. If you haven't seen that letter, please take a read through it. You know, the funny thing about, I actually have known Donald Trump for some time now, and I've dealt with him one-on-one. I've dealt with him one-on-many. I've seen him interact. You know, I look at an individual who has an amazing family. He's got an amazing global business. And I would say that if I was going to tag him with a strength, it is the strength of his temperament. His temperament is about winning. It's about winning. And I think if we question anybody's temperament, we should question Hillary Clinton's temperament. I mean, oh my, exactly. And I know that this issue is going to come up because, you know, they sit there in some office, some campaign headquarters, and they're going, let's pick the right word, and let's make sure we try to stick it on him. Hey, give him that label. He has a temperament that says we need to win. We need to win at the things that we are so desperately, you know, in need of today. I mean, everything from the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Most people don't know that right now we have 5 Supreme Court justices between the ages of 68 and 82. So the potential, and normally a Supreme Court justice either dies or departs office by about the age of 75. So there's a potential for the next president of the United States, at least in the first 4 years, could change maybe 3, maybe 4, potentially 5 Supreme Court justices. So that, you know, with all the other challenges, all the other kinds of things that we're facing today, and not to mention what's happening with China. I think everybody just saw what happened with our president over in China. They just totally disrespected him. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. North Korea, you'll hear about some of these things today. What is happening on the sort of the eastern frontiers of Europe with Russia, what Russia's doing inside of the Middle East. And frankly, you know, again, you'll hear some different things coming out of Donald Trump today. But this is a guy that I've known long enough and looked him in the eyes and felt his seriousness and passion for this country, as many of us in this room have. And this is a very, very important time. So I think that what we need to all be doing is we really need to reflect between now and November 8th on how we want this country to be going forward. This is not about, you know, well, I wish that we had this era or that era. This is about where do we stand today? Where do we stand globally? Where do we stand right here in the homeland? And where do we want to be going forward well beyond 4 years? It could be for the next 40 or for the next 400 years. So when you listen to the words that Donald Trump is going to talk about today, I want you to reflect on this word that he's been labeled with, which is temperament. His temperament is solid. It's steady. He's an unbelievable listener. He's somebody who takes in all of the advice that he's been given. And you've seen the great set series of messages that he has been providing for us for about the last month, if not the last year. So this is about winning. This election is about winning. It is about putting the United States of America back on a winning track. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I am humbly and honored to be standing up here today to introduce to you the next President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Today I'm here to talk to you about 3 crucial words that should be at the center always of our foreign policy. Peace through strength. We want to achieve a stable, peaceful world with less conflict and more common ground. I am proposing a new foreign policy focused on advancing America's core national interests, so important, promoting regional stability, and producing and easing the tensions within our very troubled world. This will require rethinking the failed policies of the past. We can make new friends, rebuild old alliances, and bring new allies into the fold, and we can do that. I'm proud to have the support of war-fighting generals, active duty military, and top experts who know both how to win and how to avoid endless wars that we're caught up in, like the one we have right now that just never, ever ends, our longest war. Just yesterday, 88 top generals and admirals endorsed my campaign. And these people are Fantastic. Thank you. In a Trump administration, our actions in the Middle East will be tempered by realism. The current strategy of toppling regimes with no plan for what to do the day after only produces power vacuums that are filled simply by terrorists. Gradual reform, not sudden and radical change, should be our guiding objective in that region. We should work with any country that shares our goal of destroying ISIS and defeating radical Islamic terrorism. And we're going to form new friendships and partnerships based on this mission and this mission alone. We now have an administration and a former Secretary of State who refuse to say radical Islamic terrorism. And unless you're going to say the words, you're never going to solve the problems. Very simple. Immediately after taking office, I will ask my generals to present to me a plan within 30 days to defeat and destroy ISIS. This will require military warfare, but also cyber warfare, financial warfare, and ideological warfare, as I laid out in my speech on defeating radical Islamic terrorism several weeks ago. Instead of an apology tour, which you saw President Obama give over and over again, I will proudly promote our system of government and our way of life as the best in the world, just like we did in our campaign against communism during the Cold War. We will show the whole world how proud we are to be Americans. At the same time, immigration security is a vital part of our national security. We only want to admit people to our country who will support our values and love our people. They have to love our people. These are, in fact, the pillars of a sound national security strategy. Unlike my opponent, my foreign policy will emphasize diplomacy, not destruction. Hillary Clinton's legacy in Iraq, Libya, Syria has produced only turmoil and suffering and death. Her destructive policies have displaced millions of people. Then she has invited these refugees into the West with no plan to screen them, including veteran health care costs. And this was just announced and read over the last number of weeks. The price of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan will total approximately $6 trillion. We could have rebuilt our country over and over again. Yet after all this money was spent and lives lost, Clinton's policies as Secretary of State have left the Middle East in more disarray than ever before, not even close. Had we done nothing, we would have been in far better position. Meanwhile, China has grown more aggressive and North Korea more dangerous and belligerent than ever. Russia has defied this administration at every single turn. Putin has no respect for President Obama and has absolutely no respect for Hillary Clinton. Sometimes it seemed like there wasn't a country in the Middle East that Hillary Clinton didn't want to invade, intervene in, or topple. She's trigger happy and very unstable. Whether we like it or not, that's what's going on. She's also reckless, so reckless, in fact, that she put her emails on an illegal server that our enemies could easily hack and probably have. Then Clinton's team used a technology called BleachBit, which is basically acid. And this is going to acid wash her emails. Who would do this? And nobody does it because of the expense. Who would do this? They even took a hammer to some of her 13 phones to cover up her tracks in obstruction of justice. These email records were destroyed after she received a subpoena. Remember that word, after. She received a subpoena from Congress to turn them over. If you do that in private enterprise, it's a violation of the law. She did this after receiving a subpoena from the United States Congress. In the FBI report, she claimed she couldn't recall important information on 39 separate and different occasions. She can't even remember whether she has trained in the use of classified information. And she said she didn't know the letter C means confidential or at least classified. If she can't remember such crucial events and information, honestly, she's totally unfit to be our commander-in-chief. Totally unfit. But I have a feeling she did remember, and she does know, and that also makes her unfit. Her conduct is simply disqualifying. She talks about her experience, but Hillary Clinton's only foreign policy experience ended up in absolute failure. Everywhere she got involved, things got worse. Let's look back at the Middle East at the very beginning of 2009, before Hillary Clinton was sworn in. Libya was stable. Syria was under control. Egypt was ruled by a secular president and an ally of the United States. Iraq was experiencing a reduction in violence. The group that would become what is now called ISIS was close to being extinguished. Would have never happened. Iran was being choked off by economic sanctions. Fast forward to today. What have we gotten from the horrible, horrible decisions made by Barack Obama and Secretary Clinton? Libya is in ruins. Our ambassador and 3 other brave Americans are dead. And ISIS has gained a new base of operations and taking their very valuable oil. Syria is in the midst of a disastrous civil war. ISIS controls large portions of territory. A refugee crisis now threatens Europe and the United States, and hundreds of thousands of people are dead. In Egypt, terrorists have gained a foothold in the Sinai Desert, near the Suez Canal, one of the most essential waterways anywhere in the world. Iraq is in chaos, and ISIS is on the loose. And Iran, by the way, will be taking over Iraq and their vast oil reserves. ISIS has spread across the Middle East and into the West. Iran, the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, is now flush with $150 billion in cash being released by the United States, plus another $1.7 billion that we just learned about last evening in cash ransom payments. We thought it was $400 million. Turns out that it's now $1.7 billion in cash. In other words, our country was blackmailed and extorted into paying this unheard of amount of money as ransom. And our president lied to us. Worst of all, the nuclear deal puts Iran, the #1 state sponsor of radical Islamic terrorism,